Hello everyone, I'm on to this week's lap guide tutorial. This is for IMSA at Road Atlanta. This week we're using the Mercedes GT3, so let's have a look around. So, short up to turn 1. One thing I will say this week, this here will just be covered in dirt on the way in, with people going over this grass on the way into turn 1, obviously. This will build up through the race, so just be a bit wary of that. This will change. I feel like in the race you will end up staying over the white line, but on a hot lap, for this purpose of video as well, you'll be able to cut over this. So 100 meter board, you're going to be aiming to cut over here to just run off on the outside. The reason why is because this opens up the corner a lot more into turn 1. If you just run the white line on the way into turn 1 and then compare it to running a wheel or half a car in the runoff, it's huge. You get so much more like free rotation on the outside. You can angle the car a lot nicer into turn 1, carry more speed, use less brake, but also the biggest thing, you do not lean on the front left as much. If you lean on that front left too much in turn 1, yes, you get progression through this season, the car will get faster and faster. However, if you kill the front left here in turn 1, the progression kind of like stalls out to like not as like extreme as what you want it to be. So if your progression in a stint is like stabilizing too much, like you're not gaining as much as other people, it's most likely because you've hurt the left front on the way into turn 1 through the stint. But naturally in a hot lap, and for this case, you want to dip your wheels over the grass now. If I go to chase, you'll see. Just ever so slightly, just left side only, nothing more. You can see already like the dirt build up here, for instance. This will be more extreme. This will be like over here through the race. So this will get a bit tricky in turn 1. Biggest one I would say is you want to brake once you're in the runoff here on the outside. If you slightly brake at this point here where my cursor is, the car will move around ever so slightly. So just keep that in mind. You always want to make sure you're braking onto the actual tarmac itself. But onto tarmac, brake 20%, 30% at most. It's nothing crazy. You just want to like, just slow the car down ever so slightly. Brake a nice straight line here. You want to be turning in as well once this white line at this, like you get to this point in the white line where my cursor is. So you arc it in, one downshift. Again, you see the brake pressure about 30%. Try to brake it all the way in. Nice little reference, I would say. You want to be on throttle once you get to the curb or where the marshal hood is. Around this area here is where you'll be back on the 100% throttle. So you want to just trail brake it all the way in. At the curb now, you commit to the throttle. And with that, it just allows you to run the car out wide here. If you're, for instance, dipping a wheel here or you're very close to this outside curb, you've just got in a little bit too hot initially in turn 1. There is no need to be fully sending it in turn 1 and be like running the risk of your wheel dipping on this outside curb here, because 1, it just spins the car, but 2, it can drag you off the track as well completely. So there's no real risk. Yes, you might see your delta go green. Like I think on my hot lap for this car, for instance, my sector 1 was a little bit faster. That's because there was one lap I sent it a little bit hard into turn 1. Yes, you get a faster initial sector 1, but it hurts your sector 2. So it's kind of a compromise. There's no need to be running fully out here. Just bring the car over to about here. Just a little bit away from the curb. And up over the hill into turn 3. Here, I'm going to pause it. You'll see, this is quite a nice little reference. People kind of get a bit lost in turn 3, like with what to do, like lifting and braking. This marshal hut is quite a nice little reference. You want to lift off once you get to it. So now it's in my right monitor if on triples. Single screen, unfortunately, you kind of have to go about here. So just as you go over the crest, we say, when this hut here is visible. Lift off, and then you want to get your left wheels up on this outside curb, and then brake once you can kind of get the steering lock off. If you're fully braking with this steering lock on, the car is just going to go straight. And with that, you then get no rotation when you need to get to the curb of turn 3. So here, what you want to do is you have a tiny bit of brake now, but then as soon as I get off the lock, so just before the end of the curb, now I build my brake pressure in. You can see I've got the steering pretty much straight, almost angled to turning right for the actual curb itself for the apex of turn 3. But from here, you want to start turning in, coming off the curb just at the end here. Trail brake in, you want to slowly bleed off the brake on the way in. You're aiming to cut over this pretty central, but keeping your left wheels on the track. Via chase. Cut over. See, right hand side of the car is fully over the curb. Left side of tyres are just on the yellow-orange line here. With that, the car, when it lands, will bounce a little bit. You just want to be nice and patient on the throttle. See, the car does a big compression now. On the throttle, just bounce about 60-70% initially. Hold it, And then once you can get the steering lock off, then get on power. If you're running wide and going on the grass and dirt here, again, similar to turn 1, you just committed to the throttle too early. You tried to be a bit too eager, try and carry speed. It forces the car wide. Just be a bit patient. As this whole curb here, this sets you up for the entire next part of the S's up to turn 5. If you mess this up here, you just bleed time all the way down the hill, because this sets you up nicely. So it's very key. You get up on this curb, you see the car bounce around a little bit, no problem. 100% throttle, but you can just hear it there slightly, and I go to chase. Just have your left wheels up on top of this curb, almost like the top of the dirt here in the grass. But the biggest thing here, if you look down here at my throttle input, you're balancing the throttle about 75-80% here. You hold that all the way through till the exit of the curb towards the end. So you come off the curb around now, towards the end of it. Then 100% throttle. If you're 100% throttle on the grass here, the car will just want to spin. It really just wants to snap on the exit. But you'll notice when you're doing this, when you've got your left wheels on top of the curb, it has so much free rotation, and it keeps the car nicely over to the left-hand side of the track for you for free. It's a no-brainer to do it. So it's very key. You just do this, get a little lift in, back on the throttle once you're back on the curb, on off the grass. And with that, when the car gets off the curb and you're fully off that corner, you're almost like in the middle of a track. So now you're in the middle of a track, aiming to the left. You're not running the risk of running the car over here to the right. Because if you're a little bit over here to the right, it makes this next curb here super tricky. You end up hitting it at a weird angle, and it throws the car off the track completely in the next part. So you want to hook and set this whole sector up. Over left, quite an early turn in. You want to get nice and close to this inside curb here. Run it all the way out. The next curb strike, aiming for the blue. You can get away with hitting the curb here, but the car does bounce and bottom a lot harder. It can snap the car randomly. It has happened to many people in the past. So you want to aim for the second part, so where this blue part is here. See here, the car launches. You just dipping your left wheels on top of the curb. I go chase again. Just your left wheels on top of the curb all the way through. When you come off the curb towards the end of it. We're now into turn 5. Probably the trickiest corner on the entire track to set up. Very easy to overwork it on the way in, and then get a terrible exit, or underdo it on entry, and then try and commit on the exit, and then you mess up the exit because you bounce around on the outside of the curb. Biggest thing I would say is, you commit in quite deep, and then just before you get to the curb itself, there's no real reference here, but normally once I'm past this orange line here, and where the white line starts, around here you lift off. You want to be angling to hook the curb and aiming for this flat part here where my cursor is. Do not try and commit to the curb here. That is one thing what people try and do and they then struggle. If you hit the curb here, the car just bounces into the middle of the track, makes it really awkward on the way into turn 5. Aiming for the flat part of the curb, so here, and as you notice, I just roll in. As soon as you get onto the outside curb, now I bring the brake in, but it's a very soft brake, 50%, and you just bleed it all the way into the corner. You just get a bit more, but nothing too crazy, 50% at most. Any more than that, you just stop the car too much. But the biggest thing for turn 5, on entry especially, making sure that you're using from this bit here at the curb. Missing this bit and missing this bit. Very key once you're on the curb itself. You come off the curb just before the end, you see here the curb falls away or goes around the corner through the cut through. You want to use this little bit here when you come and you start coming off the brakes. The car instantly rotates and bounces on the way in. With that, it gives you a nice amount of rotation on the way in. You see that it bounces, bottoms out. But look how close I am now to the apex of turn 5. Your left wheels are just on the orange line. You can get away with using the curb here. Driver preference, but if you want to use the curb, you've got to come at the corner a little bit earlier, and you've got to commit to this part here. But the biggest thing for now that you're here at this point, next to the curb, you can now just commit to the throttle. 100% throttle, use all the runoff on the outside, and you land perfectly in this runoff here on the outside. If you're, for instance, bouncing at the curb here, you've just carried a little bit too much speed in. Most of the time, if I go chase, it'll be easier. If you're here, normally what's happened, you've bounced off this curb a little bit too aggressively, so you've bounced ever so slightly wide, and then you're about here where my cursor is. So you're just a tiny bit away from the curb,
but it's so marginal here on the exit to get this really clean exit. Any sort of misplacement of the car, it costs you massively. So it's very, very key. Dip a wheel on the right side of this curb before the end, off the curb, release the brakes, trail brake it in, then once you're towards the end of this curb, on the power, and commit to the exit. And then from here we've got a nice short run to turn 6 and 7. But for the first time, nicely marked out for us in advance. So you've got 2 lines here and then a 3rd line here. So you've got like a braking line here, a turning in line, and a downshift line. Pretty easy. So 200 board, brake, 2nd set of lines here, start turning in. And then you want to do a late downshift between the 2nd and the 3rd set of lines. I find if you try and do all the downshifts like here, 1, you just slow the car down too much, and 2, what happens then is you then try and over push the entry to turn 6, which then throws you out wide onto the grass and all that dirt on the outside. Very key, you're going quite aggressive on the way in, and do your downshift pretty late, so tyre barriers or before this last line. Braking wise, you see 70%, 60%, nothing too crazy into here. Very easy again to overwork the brakings here. No need to go to 80, 90% brake. You just slow the car down too much. But it's very key. Releasing the brake quite early. Just trail brake it in. Getting nice and close to this inside curb. On this lap I miss it a little bit. Normally you want to be just touching this orange line. But you can see already we're back on throttle very, very early here. I'm going to follow this curb round. Pretty aggressive on the throttle up to 100%. But you can see here, like, steering wise, you're already like really fighting the steering lock here. You want to like nothing more than this because it really then hurts that front left, like I mentioned in turn 1. It's very easy here to overwork the front left, so just keep that in mind, especially in the long run. In the long run, you'll just wait on the throttle a little bit. You'll wait till about now to get on throttle. Like here, you'll get on throttle, so a bit later, and you just would be a bit more patient. But the key thing for turn 7, and what I always do, as soon as you get your left wheels up on this outside runoff curb, you hear it or feel it or visibly see it. This point, get off the throttle on the brakes, brake in a nice straight line. Again, 65-70% brake in a nice straight line. I find with this corner it's very easy to miss. It's very misled, and like you overshoot the entry to the apex of turn 7 if you commit to this a bit longer than you think. So brake a bit early when you. So as soon as you get on the curb, brake, follow the curb. Turning in wise, you want to be coming off the curb just towards the end, around here. Slow release the brakes. You see quite a decent drop off. It's like 40-50% to 20. With that, you trail brake it all the way in. Then once your left wheels are actually on the curb, so for this lap, my right wheel's just on the blue part of the curb here. At this point, you want to be committed to the throttle. You can fully cut over this bit here as well. You can use this curb. I tried it. For that, you just need to go to the corner now, like 5-10 meters earlier, if that. But with that, you do have to hold and bounce the throttle a lot more because of how the car bounces and moves around. So just be a bit careful of that. You have to take a bit more practice on that one. But on this lap, I just go around the curve pretty much. So mid-corner, throttle, 60-70%. Hold it. And then once you can get the steering lock off, then 100%. So many laps and people will have it this week as well. You'll get this massive snap of oversteer here. You see I'm already actually fighting the car a little bit. Normally that's because you've just been too aggressive on the initial power. And then the car slides around here on the exit. So just be nice and patient. As soon as you get the steering lock off, now then you get on 100% throttle. Let the car naturally run wide. If you're here already on the runoff, again, you just try to commit to the power too early. And you're fighting the car. Yes, you might get away with the car, one lap. But over a stint, this will really affect the tyres. So be nice and patient on the exit. Runoff wise, make sure you're back on the track before this bit here, because you don't get the off track, but it's more the fact that the dirt here actually slows you down a little bit and you just lose ever so slightly and down the straight. Then from here, got a nice run down to 10A and 10B, or the bus stop. Keep the car over to the right hand side of the track, no point drifting over here on the left. So, looking up, it's like nicely marked out for us. 200 board, 100 board. Got a curb here on the outside. Nice little reference to use. In the race itself, this will probably change. In the race itself, you're probably lifting off around here. One, if you're in a train with GT3s, racing, saving fuel. But also LMDHs and LMP2s overtaking into here, you will probably have to lift off because they will commit to this corner. They always do. So you've got to keep that in mind. So this will change. All this will mean your initial braking will be pushed up to the actual 100 board itself. But on a hot lap purpose, or 100% throttle on the way in, down the crest, you're braking just before the 100 board. So now, just before the 100, with the lifting and stuff, you'll be probably braking around here, at this line here. Braking wise, a bit different to other seasons, I feel. Normally you'd actually just smash the brake 100% now and hold that all the way into the curb, get to the curb, start trail braking, apex here. This season I find if you do that, the car just goes straight, you don't get the rotation at the midpoint like you did last season. Best way around that, you still want to get to 100% brake, but you want to build up to it. So you see my braking, it just slowly builds up, 100% just before this outside curb here. Again, very key. Get your right wheels fully over this curb. I go to here, for instance. You just help widen the entry up to 10A. Makes it a lot easier. If you're just here, it's super tight on the way in. You can't actually then hook the curb properly. At this point, it allows you then to hook the curb and cut over it a lot nicer. But, biggest thing, early turning, this last line here. Very easy, turn in off that. As soon as you come off the curb, release the brake. So now you're like over a little crest. But the biggest point and one of the most important parts of this track, getting this cut is so important for a chase. So right wheels on the white line, then you've got no problem. Left wheels fully cut over the inside here. With that, you can already see we're going to land around here on the exit, which then makes the right of 10B a lot easier to hook up and get a nice and smooth exit to the line. Any sort of wiggling here, again, you just bleed time all the way to the line, but also into turn 1. It's quite a, especially in qualifying as well. If you mess this up, you lose so much time. Very key you cut over this inside curb. But then when you're on the actual curb itself, like in the dirt and the grass, very crucial. You just build the power and you see, just slowly feed it in, then 100% once you're off the curb. If you're 100% throttle here, the car will just instantly want to snap around on itself. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. But you see, steering wise, you're aiming to keep it over to the left. Go off the curb. You're half a car over this line here, and you can visibly see it from here. Like, you're aiming for this part of the curb. You're not worrying about this part, you're aiming for this part now. And with that, I always then do a little comfort lift here, just 5-10% as you aim for this part of the curb here. Cut over it. The car does a big bounce here on an initial hit. Hold it. Then as soon as you get that steering lock off and you've done that little wiggle off the curb, once the car settled down, then 100% throttle. With this like wiggle here, the car can move around a little bit if you're too aggressive on the 100% throttle. So if you go 100% throttle now, the car does move around a little bit, so just keep that in your back of your head. So just be a bit wary, just be a bit patient on throttle. Any sort of slipping and sliding here, you kind of undo any work you might have gained here on this cut. So a lot of cut on the way in. Bleed, hold, put it out naturally, under the bridge. When in qualifying, you want to aim for this line and keep it nice and tight to the line. In the race, you'll naturally run out here because LMDH and LMP2s want to overtake on the inside here. And with that, short run to the line, and that completes a lap of Road Atlanta for this week.